Okay, so combined liability in match betting. What is combined liability and how can we use it to maximise our profits from match betting? Well, basically, a lot of people use combined liability and most people use it to combine extra places and maximise their profits from extra places. But a lot of people also use it when they first start match betting and they don't have a big balance, so they can do as many offers as they possibly can while keeping their balance to an absolute minimum. So basically, combined liability allows us to place lay bets on the same market which have a larger accumulative liability than what is contained within our betting exchange balance. And this is because the betting exchange knows that only one horse can win the horse race. So the betting exchange only requires to take the largest liability from the largest lay bet that you have on the market. So any other liabilities that you have underneath the largest liability from the horse with the largest liability, they're not going to count and they're not going to be needed by the betting exchange. So we look at this example here on this race here, this 16-15 race. I actually laid two different horses in this race. I laid this first one at the bottom here, Hayel, with a liability of £1,322.15, and I laid the top one, Tor and Sherman, with a liability of £1,053.17. So those two liabilities, as shown there in the red, those accumulative liabilities was £2,375.32. So those liabilities added up equaled that number there, £2,375.32p. Now my account balance in this example was £1,400. So as you can see, there's an issue already. I have £1,400 in my betting exchange balance, but the overall liability between these two horses that I'm laying is £2,375. So on the surface of it, it looks like I've not got enough money in my betting exchange balance to place these lay bets which have a larger total liability. And it looks like on the surface that I'm missing pretty much £975. So it looks like I'm not going to be able to do that. It looks like I'm not going to be able to place these lay bets because my balance is smaller than the accumulative liability on these two horses. But that isn't actually the case, and I actually did manage to place these two lay bets even though the balance, as shown here, is only 1,400. And this is because the betting exchange only needs to take the largest liability, as this is the maximum amount of money that you can possibly lose on the exchange. So you can't lose any more than the maximum liability that you have, the largest liability on the biggest horse that you have. So we go back to this example again. The first lay bet I did was on this Hayel at the bottom, and that liability was £1,322.15, and that's shown there in the red circle again. And of course my account balance started with 1,400, so I started with 1,400 in the account. I placed that lay bet, and the liability on Hayel was £1,322.15p. So as you would expect, my account balance then dropped to £77.85. I placed this massive lay bet here, tied up that liability, the exchange took that money from my account. That's what you would expect to happen, right? So you would expect at this point the remaining balance required to place this lay bet here, this Tor and Sherman lay bet, you would expect I would need more money to add to this account balance to place that lay bet. But as I just said, that isn't actually the case. So we look at this, because we're combining liability across these two horses. Let's say this Hayel wins the race, this bottom horse here, actually wins the race. Now as we're laying on betting exchanges and we're not backing, if the horse wins, we lose the exposure, we lose our liability. Now in reality, we don't lose any money because we're backing with bookmakers and we win the money there. But in terms of the betting exchange, if we're laying, this is the money we have at risk on the exchange. So this Hayel had £1,322, 15 at risk. That was my exposure, that was my liability. So let's say this horse won, then I would lose this liability, £1,322. I'd lose that liability, which we already know. The exchange took that money straight from my balance. We already know that's the case. But let's say Hayel doesn't win, and let's say this one wins at the top here, this Tor and Sherman, and I lose my liability here of £1,053. Because Hayel hasn't won, the exchange knows it can just take the liability from this Hayel and use this liability on this one to pay out the bet on Tor and Sherman, and then it can just refund you the remaining balance that it hasn't used to pay out that lay bet. So it could just use this liability here on Hayel and then just refund you the difference, which is yours. So all that you need to bear in mind is that as long as the lay bet that you're placing has a smaller liability than your largest lay bet liability that you have in the market, then that money isn't required in your balance. So we jump back a page. So obviously the first lay bet that you have here, this £1,322, that's going to be taken from your balance straight away. You can't get around that. But if you go in and place any more lay bets on different horses, as long as the lay bet amounts are smaller than this amount, that money isn't needed in your balance. It isn't going to be taken from your balance because the exchange doesn't need to take that money. It doesn't need that exposure. So if you placed another lay bet on a different horse which was just 1p less than this, or you placed a lay bet £1,322.14 on a different horse, that wouldn't count. The exchange wouldn't need that money because it's already got the exposure on another horse. So that's how you can combine liability. It's a really, really clever trick. Loads of people use it for that reason. And then just finally to conclude here, combine liability in the place markets. So this is really simple and very similar, but it is slightly different, I guess. So with combined liability in place markets, and this is going to be attributable to doing extra places, as you can see here at the top here where it says to place top 4, whatever place market that you're laying in, so if you're laying in the place top 4 market or you're laying in the place top 3 market, whichever place market you're laying in, that is the amount of accumulative liability that you'll need to tie up. So as you can see, this one's place top 4. That means that the top 4 largest liabilities that I have in that place market are going to be required within my betting exchange balance. Anything after that with smaller liabilities isn't needed within the account because the exchange only needs the top 4 or the top 3 or the top 2, whatever place market you're laying in. That's the amount of liability the exchange needs for the place market. So yeah, that's pretty much what it is, guys. Combined liability. I've made a lot of money from extra places using this trick. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book in match betting. It's a little bit complicated at first, but it really does work and it can help you lock in some big profits from extra places. And if you're just starting out, you can combine liability on the same horse race to allow you to do as many different offers as possible. So it's a great trick, and I really recommend that you use this if you are doing extra places or you are starting match betting and you don't have a big enough balance to blast through offers as quickly as you'd like to. Combining liability is a great trick. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. If you enjoyed this video, or you found it useful, or you found it entertaining, if you won't mind, guys, just tap that like button just below this video. It helps me out massively, and it helps push this video out to as many different people as possible who might be interested in learning about match betting and learning about making money online. So if you won't mind doing that, it takes about 2 seconds of your time and it helps me out absolutely massively. So please do that if you won't mind. And if you want to get my videos as soon as I release them to YouTube, so loads of different ways of making money from match betting, and I've got quite a lot of them that I've used over the last year and a half or so. Tap that subscribe button just below this video and YouTube will send you my videos as soon as they're released as well. And that also helps me out massively as well. So thank you very much in advance for doing those 2 things. And all that's left to say now is thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next video.